Now, welcome everybody to our pilot of the Wellbeing Specialist. My name's Tony Neale from Wellbeing Health Retreat.
And my name is Dr. Ian Kaminskyj here from the Melbourne NLP Hypnosis Centre, and together we are the Wellness Specialists.
Specialist, yes. And what we're going to talk about today is techniques about uncertainty. And boy, is there a lot of uncertainty around at the moment.
And it's increasing on a daily basis, isn't it, Tony?
It is. You might have. I noticed in the paper yesterday that in the Age that over 1 million Victorians have been affected by the lockdown in terms of mental stress and anxiety. So that's amazing. 1 million people. So what do you think about that, Ian?
That's a lot of people, Tony.
That's right. So just to introduce ourselves a little bit more, I'm the CEO of Wellbeing Health Retreats, and I've been a wellbeing specialist now for over 8 years. Over to you, Ian.
And I've actually been helping my clients with hypnotherapy and NLP now for the last 12 years, Tony.
So just to have a bit of a chat what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about the times of uncertainty, and then we're going to talk about coping with uncertainty. We're not going to worry about those two other items. So let's just jump into it now. So let's just talk about uncertainty. So when uncertainty happens, what's actually happening to us? So the types of things that happens is that we suffer anxiety, especially about things about coming to the future, and that causes us stress. So we go into this primitive survival instinct, which you can see there, the warrior there, to you either go into a fight mode or a flight mode. And what that actually means is that blood's going from your organs and into your muscles and your skeleton structure so that you can fight, because you have to fight. But now in this age, things have changed a bit. So what's your experiences been, Ian, from the clients that you've been treating?
Well, I've noticed a number of examples, Tony, even with working with colleagues that I sort of see regularly, and how they sort of are responding nowadays in a much more sort of aggressive, agitated manner to things that otherwise would never even bat an eyelid. But now, just because of the extra anxiety they're experiencing, they're now responding in a much more negative, aggressive way that would normally be the case. It's quite noticeable. What about you, Tony?
Yeah, well, I've noticed a lot of it. It's not only have you seen it in the papers about how much the stress and anxiety is, that the actual health authorities and there's been articles about how much increase it is on the actual psychologists and psychiatrists and other experts who can help people with mental issues. It's the lockdown which is causing a lot of this stress, and especially in Victoria, but even in general. There are techniques that we can use to overcome that. But before we do that, let's just go through some of the reactions to stress and anxiety. We get anger. We get aggression, we get a lot of frustration, and of course, a lot of fear. What's going to happen in the future? We don't know. So what have you found out from your experience there, Ian?
Well, I suppose, Tony, I mean, the really interesting thing to sort of pick up from these negative emotions that you've mentioned is that it's very hard to be resourceful and empowered, creative and intelligent, when you're in these highly negative states. Let me ask you a question, Tony. If you have a challenge that comes up throughout the day, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your family or other relationships, are you better placed to respond and deal with it if you're in a happy, upbeat state or in a negative, down state? Which one is the better state to be in?
The better state to be in is, of course, happy, and especially if you can be enthusiastic, because enthusiastic, you've got the best vibration. When you're in the other states like anger or fear, what that actually does, it shuts down your frontal cortex of your brain, because what's happening is that you go into that fear and flight mode, and so you have to be ready to move quickly. However, if you're in a happy sort of frame of mind or an enthusiastic, your brain's working at the best. You've got the happy chemicals, if you like, working in your body rather than the other ones. And so that's so important to get into the right state. But that's a great question that you asked there, Ian. And I think that sort of leads us on to the next segment. Now that we've sort of spoke about what anxiety and stress does to you, let's talk about some simple techniques that we can use to alleviate that. Over to you, Ian.
I just want to just maybe add one extra thing, Tony. Is that you probably also would agree with me that people actually who remain in these highly negative states, of anger, frustration, tend to have major health issues typically in their lives as a result of those sorts of conditions. So it's been well documented that if you're in a relaxed, calm state, that generally your health issues actually will be much better. You'll have less illnesses, of course, than someone who's actually always in an angry, aggressive, fearful, frustrated state. So
absolutely agree with you, Ian, 100%. And from studies that has been shown that most of the diseases are caused through stress and anxiety. Over 90% of illnesses, that includes things like cancer, and those type of debilitating diseases are caused by stress.
And would you say also, Tony, that anger, frustration is actually a manifestation from stress or like a response to the stress?
Absolutely, because when you get into a stress, you've got short temper. Everyone knows that. You get irritable. It's because you've got the wrong chemicals, the hyped up chemicals in your body. You haven't got the happy chemicals like serotonin that keeps your body nice and serene and happy. So that's it. You really got to have that. Your state of mind is so important. And as we go through, we'll find out that noticing that you're in a stress and you've got anxiety is so important. So,
excellent. Well, let's then talk about some of the ways we can actually help ourselves to be able to move from these sort of angry stress states and better deal with uncertainty. So moving on to the next slide then, Tony. I suppose the very first step in any sort of improvement we might want to work on or change in our states is just being aware, being more consciously aware of what's happening, why we're actually responding the way that we're responding. And often actually, we can't necessarily control our initial emotional responses to a particular trigger, say uncertainty. But once we have that awareness and realization, we then actually have a choice. Given that I'm now feeling angry or upset, what can I now do about this? I can either stay in that really negative state, or I can actually say, well, no, I don't want to stay here. I want to do something about it, and then do things to get more relaxed and calm right down. For example, point number 3, focusing on your breathing is a great way to be able to relax and calm you down. And doing some deep breathing will automatically start to relax you down. And what actually has been found, Tony, which has been really fascinating, is that, if you start to sort of take slower, long, deep breaths, they'll actually start to relax your body down. And then as your body relaxes more and more, you'll slow down your breathing more and more, which will in turn relax you even more. It's a great sort of cycle to get involved with. And we have to realize with point number 2 that, our initial primitive responses or fight or flight, were appropriate, when we in the old days when we were like being attacked by a tiger, for example, or now, maybe being narrowly missed by a car. But of course, there's actually much other more powerful and empowered ways of responding rather than these just very, very primitive ones. So once you catch yourself realizing that you're responding very negatively, you can say, well, stop. I don't want to be angry or frustrated anymore. go beyond the fight or flight and look at other states you can take on, other emotions, other feelings that will be much more productive and healthy and better for you. So moving on to the next slide then, Tony. And just realizing with number 4 here that this is the current situation that we live in, and it might be around us for quite a bit longer to go. I mean, we're in Victoria hoping that we'll be sort of moving away from our current restrictions in the next couple of weeks. But, COVID's not going to go away in a hurry. We're going to be sort of, hopefully phasing down these restrictions over the next couple of months, potentially. So this is going to be around us for a long, long time.
Can I just interrupt there?
Yes, Tony.
In terms of uncertainty, there is another aspect of it. Once the lockdowns finish, there's going to be a giant adjustment to go back because everything changed. And so how do you ramp up again? So that's another aspect of uncertainty, especially for business and individuals. Now that we're coming out of it, how are we going to best cope with it afterwards? Because lots of things are going to be changed, isn't it?
Exactly. In fact, people are saying that we're never going to go back to what we had before COVID. It's never going to go back to that same situation.
Yeah, that's
Would
right.
you agree with that, Tony?
We need these tools, don't we? We certainly need them.
And with number five, the more flexible we are and the more resilient we are, then of course we can better handle rapidly changing environments, can't we, Tony?
Absolutely. And I think that's the key, the flexibility to adapt and look beyond it. And just instead of working against it, we work with it and say, well, this is the current situation. I need to accept this. How can I work with what I've got around me? And that's using your brains to say, well, let's have a look at thinking of different ways to be innovative and things like that.
And the thing, this is a great point you're raising there, Tony, because, not all of these things will work for everyone. So, it's great to be able to, try different techniques out, find what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and just simply then be flexible enough to just stick with what is the best techniques for you, rather than just sort of, trying everything and not finding the right one that's best for yourself. Now, yes. I know you love number 6 here, topical of control. That's one of your favorites, Tony, isn't it?
Absolutely. Now, that's a magnificent one for us to have a look at. And those two, I'll let you explain that because that's your baby.
Sure. Well, you can just jump in when you feel appropriate, Tony. So this is a great technique whenever you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed or a bit anxious about a current situation. And the basic idea is really simple, but it's profoundly powerful. And the idea is that whenever you're feeling a bit anxious or overwhelmed, just simply draw yourself 2 circles relating to the event that's causing you to feel that way. And label 1, my can control circle. Label number 2, the can't control circle. And what you then do is you just, in the can't control circle, write down all the things that you cannot control about the current situation. For example, you can't control the government's restrictions, for example, with COVID. You can't control, what the general public is doing. You can't control, what your partner does or other people in your family are doing or your friends and so on. So these are all the things you put in the can't control circle. And what you then do is you put in the can control circle all the things that you can control. What can we put in there, Tony, do you think, in the can control?
The top one, the only thing that you really control is yourself.
Exactly.
You rely on yourself because you are the one, you're the creator. You're the creator of all the possibilities. So the things that you can say is, well, the things that I can control is what resources I've got at my fingertips at the moment. And we're all born with a giant gift. That was our brain. Our brain, so that we've got the power and ability to create or insert any thought that we choose. Just think about that. We've got the power and ability to insert any thought that we want. So that means that we can be imaginative as we want. We can insert good things into our brains. Wouldn't we want to be doing that? Wouldn't
Because
we
we have
want to
the
be
power.
doing ourselves?
Because we
So
have the power to make decisions, don't we, Tony?
that's right. Absolutely. And so we can be resourceful. So one of the things that we can put in our brains is that we can have the notion that we're very resourceful. And if we've got a problem, what do? We work out a solution by getting the best people around us to come up with that solution. You build the team to give you the solution.
Excellent. So once we've got then the contents of the two circles, what we then do is we focus all of our attention moving forward only on the tasks in the can control circle. And we actually put minimal effort, focus, and time in the can't control one. And this actually will then lead you out of that sort of the frustration you will often experience when you just cannot do things that you would like to do because you're focusing on the things you have no control over.
Yep.
And you start to feel also better and better and better because as you focus on the things you can control, of course, what will happen is you'll start to then make some progress, build momentum, which will then in turn make you feel so much better as a result.
Absolutely, 100% agree with that. It's the energy that you put in is what you're going to get back. So if you're putting 100% energy into your solution, that's what you're going to get back because you're focusing on that, and that always delivers.
And once you've got that momentum, of course, then it's just much easier just to keep going in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Next slide then, Tony.
Right.
So we're saying here with number 10 here, it's very important in this sort of period during lockdown, when we are socially isolated, to in fact do everything you can to connect with others around you. So what are some of the ways, for example, Tony, that you stay connected with your friends, family, and work colleagues?
That's so important. I have a lot of Zoom meetings. Local people that I know, my wife and I will just go around to their place. So we do keep connected. I think it's so important. And did you know that there was the self-determination theorem, that the three most important aspects of that is that have independence, be able to belong to somebody, to something, right? And that's two of the most important ones. And there was a third one, but it's just slipped my mind. But the second one, that one about connecting to belong to something or a group, is so important because that's all to do with self-worth, and that's why a lot of people are having issues. That staying connected is so important. So remember that, the self-determination theorem.
Whether it's by phone, SMS, email, social media, visiting where you can, so do whatever you can, because this is a period where many of us have not experienced this sort of social isolation such a long period of time. And so just need to go out of your way to take every opportunity to sort of remain connected, with your friends and family. Looking after yourself, this is so important. So, Tony, can you tell us, for example, some of the ways that you go about looking after yourself?
Well, one of the things that we do at our retreat is we look at the 4 aspects of well-being. That's the mind, the body, the emotional side, and the spiritual side. All those 4 are so important. First of all, your mind. So we spoke about a fair bit of that. It's just to get the right mindset and to be mindful of what you're actually doing and how you're behaving. It's so important to take notice of that. Think of your mind as a garden. What are you putting into your garden? Are you going to grow weeds, or are you going to have this beautiful garden with beautiful flowers? Think of your mind as a garden. And then there's the body. We put into our body only nurturing substances. We eat well, not too much, just enough. We drink a lot of water.
Just on that point, Tony, so for example, if you're wanting to sort of minimize your stress levels and reduce your anxiety, what are some of the foods you'd recommend that we avoid?
Oh, the things that we avoid is excessive amount of coffee and caffeine. You won't have too much salt. You've got to be careful with that. Alcohol, of course, you don't want any. Try and limit your drugs. Just make sure that you have natural organic food as much as you can with moderate amounts. Don't overeat is so important. And drink plenty of pure water.
So avoiding stimulants, would you say, primarily? Avoiding stimulants?
Yeah, avoid fast foods if you can. Just make sure that you cook it well and it's cooked without chemical-free if you can. What you put in your body, you can get chemical stress because if there's so much preservatives and additives put in there, that's another form of stress that you can put on your body. And the other thing which we're talking about, I'll just jump in, the other aspects of well-being is also keep your emotions in check. So just be aware of how your emotions are, and that's feeling your hearts and stuff like that. Is your heart beating too fast or are you breathing too fast? Very important. And your spirituality. It's always important to honour your spirit. Wherever you can, get in contact with nature around you. It's so important. Okay, I've been stealing the show a little bit. Off you go.
That's fine, perfect. And I mean, I would add to that things like, doing sort of physical activities that are, very calming, very soothing to the mind. So things like, for example, yoga, tai chi, qigong, for example, very powerful, deeply relaxing activities. I also absolutely love meditation. So I meditate twice a day. And I actually find it's a very, very powerful way of, it actually helps really in three ways with stress and anxiety, Tony. Firstly, it builds up your resilience to stress and anxiety moving forward. Number two, it actually can be used, of course, when you are stressed to get to very quickly relax and calm you down. And number three, actually it tends to sort of melt away deeply rooted stresses from the past. Any trauma you might experience, maybe when you were a child, for example, it just helps dissolve them gently and easily and then keep you in that very relaxed, calm, positive state moving forward. Now, positive stories. Tell me about some of the positive stories that you've come across in this COVID situation or even outside COVID.
Well, I've been very blessed. We keep an eye on what's happening, and we noticed that a lot of the practitioners or master practitioners have been doing lots of seminars. And so we've been looking at their webinars and things like that. And a lot of those things have got some really good advice, teaching us new techniques to how to help us meditate and to help us to be mindful. There's lots of good stories about yoga. The thing is, it's all out there. So the thing is to actually embrace that. Instead of looking at all the terrible things that are happening on one side, focus on the good things that are happening. Focus on the things that will nurture you and make your well-being a lot better. So there's a lot of positive stories out there.
It actually reminds me, in fact, Tony, of when it comes to some of the laws of the mind, there's the principle of the law of control and the law of deletion. And, deletion is probably the one you're just talking about, is thinking carefully about what are you putting into your mind and body and just doing whatever you can to get rid of all the negativity, all the detrimental things that you can. For example, getting rid of all why watch sort of, really negative, horrific type of documentaries or movies? Why don't you focus more on, positive, uplifting movies that really leave you in a really happy sort of positive state?
Yep. Can I just make a comment on that Neale as well? In your subconscious mind, even though your conscious mind might say, that's not real, subconscious mind believes it. So if you're putting a lot of horror and violence, your subconscious is picking it all up. So just be aware of that. It's not. So the thing is, in your garden, your mind's garden, and some that you can see and some that you can't see. It's the unseen ones that you need to be aware of as well. So if you have a good habit of watching good movies that are uplifting and inspiring, do that rather than looking at violence and other rubbish that's not going to do you any good.
In fact, would you agree with this statement, Tony, that over time you cannot not be influenced by the people around you? Would you agree with that?
Yes. The thing is, you've got to use a character strength called discernment. And so people will tell you things, but you need to have your discernment to say, well, do I really believe this is true or false? One of the things that we see on the TV is the news. And our news media friends love to make things so dramatic, and they focus mainly on negative sort of things. The thing is, we were given a brain, and we were given the power and ability to discern, to say, well, does this sound right? If it doesn't sound right, well, I'm just going to investigate for myself and make sure whether it's true or false. So we have got that power. We always have that power. Don't believe everything that you hear from the media is my tip for everyone.
And the other thing too, I think, Tony, is that, you will become like the 5 closest people that you have around you.
Yes, that's right. So you be careful who you relate to. That's so important.
And you've probably heard this phrase, one of my favourite phrases, Tony, how can you soar like an eagle when you surround yourself with turkeys?
Yeah, I agree with that one too. That's a beauty. We should have that one framed, right?
And that's again part of the law of control. You have got, you can control many things in your life. Yeah. One of them, of course, is the people that you hang around with. Well, let's just stop there, though. And now I want to talk about the stop method. This is one of your favourites here, Tony. Tell us all about this stop method. What's it all about?
One of my little babies, and I think this sort of summarises a lot of what we've actually spoke about earlier, and it's an easy one to remember. So that's why we put it up there. So you see the stop sign. So basically, the S stands for notice, which means stop and pause. And so if you're in a situation which is negative, stop and pause. Number 2, take that deep breath and gather attention. Observe what's happening. So when we observe, we use all our senses. We use our eyes, our smell, our taste, our hearing, and also our intuitive sense. Very important that we develop that 6th sense, the intuitive, and we look for signs and signals. Our body gives us lots of messages. Do we listen to it? Think about when we go into stress. Our heart goes. Are we listening? So the thing is, this is what we've got to practice. So observe and open up to body messages. And then just do what we've talked about, the 2 circles. Proceed on with discernment. Formulate a plan. If you don't know what to do with a plan, use your brain and build the team to get the plan that will serve you. So
I presume we begin.
Easy ones to remember. Stop. So stop, think, observe, and proceed. Easy
and that's
to
where you can draw the 2 circles of control with step number 4, couldn't you? And then just focus on just the can control activities. Yeah.
But the actual 4 one is with the 2 circles, because that draws in all the other things that you can have. The things that you can control. Just imagine you had a plan. That's easy, step-by-step plan to resolve whatever issue there is. And so I think that's the key to it all. The key is first of all is to notice that you're suffering anxiety or stress. Then once you do know that, then you can work out a plan to overcome that. So what do you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. Totally. I think it's a very powerful technique, very simple and highly effective. So maybe let's go on to our next slide then, Tony.
Well, it looks like we're just about at the end of our session but what I just want to remind all our audience, this is our very first pilot, so we're very excited, of course, to do this, and we want to do some more of it. And we've got another one planned. However, we haven't put down the date there, but we would love your feedback. So if you've got any feedback, send it to us in our Facebook, which I'll put up a little bit later. And if you want us to talk about topics or go deeper into a certain aspect that which we've spoken about today, let us know, because we love this show. We love giving you some advice. We loved hearing from you. So let's just move on to the next step. Would you like any other comments?
I was going to say, Tony, if people actually have any particular questions they may have about anything we've covered off today, or just in general about, well-being, health, and so on, we love answering questions. So just put them in the chat on the Facebook page, and we'll make sure we answer them as soon as we possibly can. And the information is just on that very last slide. So any final comments as we wrap things up for today, Tony?
Oh, I love these well-being chats. I really want to sort of get this going. I want this momentum going, and I really want to help all our business owners and also our individuals at large in the public. There is so much pain out there, and we want to sort of give simple techniques to help you. So please do those things to nurture yourself, to make a better you. Over to you, Ian.
Well, thank you so much, Tony. It's been an absolute pleasure being with you today as the wellness specialist, and I'm really looking forward to our next catch-up.
Yep. All right, then. Thank you, everybody. We love you. You take it easy. We want to see you next time. So be there so we can see you. Okay.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks,
Bye.
Tony.